Welcome to the show. This is Let's Catch Up with Mike, and that was Talk, Talk, Talk by St. Michael featuring Anya Gold. And this is my Pride Month series on what does pride mean to you. Welcome to the show. Today's special guest is a good friend of mine, Phillip Herr Klepacki. Welcome to the show, Phillip.
Hi, Mike. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate the invite.
Well, I appreciate you being here. Phillip is an adjunct lecturer of music at University of Florida in Gainesville. And Phillip and I have been friends for a long time. It feels like you're one of those friends that I feel like I've known my entire life, but we've actually only known each other, what, 3 years?
Ish? Yeah.
I know. It's hard to I don't know. It's one of those friendships that I feel like, why do we even bother trying to count the years? Because it does feel like I've known you forever. Like within 10 minutes of meeting you, it was like, I've known you my entire life. And that's all that matters is we're going to be friends forever. So why bother even counting the years? Because who cares? Oh, yeah. That makes me look really good, doesn't it? You know what? If I do that, then I look great, but the pride flag loses some luster. And if I do that, I look sunburned, but the pride flag looks perfect. So the pride flag's more important than I am. So I'm just gonna do that. I'm gonna look sunburned, but that's okay because my Disney Pride Waltonier shirt looks great and the flag behind me looks great. So that's what matters. It's all about pride. And speaking of which, that is why you are here. Professor HK. Is that what your students call you? Professor
Actually,
HK?
Yes. Yeah.
Is it? Okay, I knew it was something like that, either Professor K or Professor HK. I could not
That's a big old last name. I just, it's fine to abbreviate.
Well, Professor, I'm going to ask you, obviously, as the theme has dictated, what does pride mean to you? And I know you and I were talking a little bit before the show about how, as members of the queer community, we're kind of constantly coming out and, oh, my tea is kicking in. So whoop, I'm going to hiccup. We're constantly coming out and always kind of trying to think of that, how do I tell people I'm gay? How do I work that into conversation? And it's not an easy thing to do, is it? It's like, is this person even worthy of me letting them know? Or do I just kind of always, wave my freak flag everywhere I go? Or do I assimilate into this crowd, or do I just kind of, not even mention it? And that's kind of what you were talking about. So I'm going to let you kind of take it from there, and I'm going to interrupt you anyway. So I'm going to let you talk.
Okay, that's great. No, I mean, that pretty well encapsulates it, that it's constantly something to navigate with any new person I meet. Working with students and faculty at a university, there's people constantly changing. So I don't know, part of it, I think, like, they already know. And so it's just assumed, but then there's times you realize, oh, it's not. And I think probably for any queer person, it's that way. There's this constant, like, do I just announce it? Do I just assume people know? Do I not bother with that? And so we're always having to navigate life and how we bring this identity out to others. And so then in a month like Pride, where it gets sort of glorified and recognized by all of society, it's coming along, certainly. It's a nice chance to step back and see that people who long before us had to, like, really seriously and sometimes violently fight to just be who they were. We now have a society that, for better or for worse, is coming along with it, and helping us to just be able to be in public and be ourselves, and lessen the stress of that continual coming out. Like, it's not going to be as big a deal to have to say to somebody, whether directly, hey, I'm gay, or just mention in passing, oh, I have a boyfriend or a husband, or any of these sorts of things. So yeah, that's it. It's a celebration of bigger recognition, I think, finally.
Yeah. So before you became a professor, an adjunct lecturer in a college town, where I think, just by its nature, I think any college town, even if it's a conservative school, I think a college town is more liberal in its thinking anyway than most, because it's a mix of young people, it's a mix of ideas. But prior to that, how did you navigate that kind of situation? In maybe a younger Philip, how did he navigate that? Was it more, yeah, I'm queer, flick the cigarette, kick the door in, get out of my way. It's June, get out of my way, I'm gay? Or was it more, like, yeah, I don't want to talk about it kind of thing? Or, how did you navigate it as a youth?
As a youth, well, you're asking me to really dig back in the memory there.
I know, 3 whole years.
Aren't you sweet? You can't do math. I love it.
No, I'm bad at math. Everyone knows that. I can't count to 21 unless I'm naked.
Okay, all right then. Nothing wrong with that. So young Philip, it's a little weird. I was kind of thinking about this last night, actually, in preparation for today, because I thought it might come up. In my own home growing up, I never really worried about, like, because I knew from a pretty much young age, I'm like, hey, you kind of like boys more than you like girls. And that was the thing I had to deal with internally a lot. I never worried that my immediate family would have a problem with it. One of my closest uncles was gay and open and out. And so I got to see him kind of go through the family struggle with that, which was not the best thing, but generations advance. But both of my parents were always super supportive, even though I didn't come out until after I left home. And then being out in, like, school settings didn't happen. Like, I didn't come out until I went to college. But I was the kid in high school that was in the band and the choir and the drum and like all the things where the queer kids tend to gravitate anyway. So even if there were rumblings like, hey, Philip might be gay, nobody in that crowd was really, like, going to be problematic about it. And I've learned all these years later, thanks to the magic of Facebook, that, wow, I went to high school with a lot of gay people. Right. So I think, we all kind of sort of knew, like, those little secret codes that we have, like, oh, wait, huh? You too? Okay. But nobody talked about it really then. So yeah, it wasn't until I went to college in Iowa and came out at a small liberal arts college, which, again, they sort of have their reputation for being, like, granola and dancing on the quad and that sort of thing. Right. But, it was 1993. And so it was still not a thing that was talked about. And right. There was a big incident with the Gay Student Union within my first 2 months of being there. And my roommate even was like, oh, those queers. And so, like, he ended up being one of my best friends. And I think he was just having an angry moment at the same time. But it hit me. I was like, whoa, wow. Yeah. But it was later that semester that I was like, you know what, I'm done. This is who I am, and this is how I'm going to identify. And that's pretty much been it ever since. Everywhere I've gone, I've not tried to hide any of this. I don't run into a room, I'm like, hi, I'm Phillip Herr Klepacki and I'm gay. But if they couldn't tell by my sing-songy introduction anyway, but right. If something comes up in conversation about my personal life or professionally that would allude to it, fine. Yeah. Let's just talk about it.
I mean, the rainbow bracelet helps.
Yeah. And even though I'm still in my last week of work from home, RIP work from home. But this is an important symbol to me on campus, because I want students that are coming they're going to be their first time in college and just stepping onto a college campus, maybe coming from small town Florida or somewhere else. I want them to see an adult visible out, professional, like I want to be a positive representation, and I hope I can be. And so even something like this that just sits quietly on my wrist, I hope that there's students that are like catching notice of that and taking note.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and I'm glad to see that you're doing that. I do feel that any sort of visibility that we can offer, whether it's a pride bracelet or if you go full full P flag mom, and like I was thinking of I can never remember her name. Sharon Glass's character on Queer as Folk, where she wore the hat and the scarf and the suspenders and the bracelets and the the flag in her back pocket and the bandana and the everything. If you go full P flag mom and wear that stuff around campus, the first week, if that's your way of showing solidarity with the new queer students on campus, that's awesome. If it's just a subtle little pin or a bracelet, that's cool too. But I think that's really important to let the new kids know, hey, not only am I with you in an allyship of, hey, I'm one of you, but also to let them know I'm actually in this fight with you. I'm not just an ally of someone you can safely come to, but I'm actually one of you.
Right.
I think that's really, really important. So yeah, if I'd had that in college or high school, if I'd had, I did have a gay teacher in high school who was actually two of them, although I only really knew about one of them, who was kind of my savior. But she could not be out, she could be subtly out to a select few of us. But that made all the difference. It really, it saved my life, literally, in a profound way.
Absolutely. Yeah. My first semester at college at that little school in Iowa, my advisor, Mr. Hoffman, loved him. Again, out, proud gay man, like there was no secret about it. And so like that was the first professional person I met as a college student. And he very well like took me under his wing and helped develop me musically and as a budding teacher and stuff like that. But also just, I don't know whether he knew it or not, but kind of served in that role model capacity of just saying, hey, this is your career trajectory. You can do this too. And it's okay to just be out and fine. So that helped immensely, I think, especially to make a transition to a brand new place where I didn't know anybody.
Right. How accepting is how accepting are, I'm going to adjust my mic a little bit. I hear a bit of an echo. How accepting is the faculty of your fellow staff mates, staff members? How accepting are they of you in your expressions, if you when and if you choose to express during, not just during Pride Month, but anytime?
Yeah. I've had zero bad problems really at UF, working as colleagues with other faculty, other staff members. Again, maybe it's the sort of safe space of being in the School of Music and the College of Arts that this is where our people sometimes gravitate. And I know I'm not the only gay faculty staff member here either. So that does also, there's a little bit of that solidarity, knowing that I'm not the only one. But I mean, from the moment I've had a professional bio on the website, it's mentioned my queerness. While I was married, it mentioned my late husband. Even my professional research dives into queer musicology, and I wasn't going to like try to find some way to code that. I studied queer musicology, so it's always been just out there, and it's not really like an act of resistance, but it almost is kind of just like a, hey, this is who I am, and you're gonna like it or you're gonna not, but either way we have to work together. So
right. Let's
just go for it. But no, I've never had any issues here at UF. It's been a great place.
And no pushback from students at all?
No. Oh, I mean, the students that I teach probably don't dare. Like, like what are they going to say? Right. I mean, one of my biggest moments was walking into my classroom in 2008. Barack Obama had just been elected president, and in that same election, Florida had passed Amendment 2, which was like marriage is one man, one woman. So I went in there and I just was kind of, it was celebratory because of the presidency, but also like, hey, I just lost a bunch of rights last night, and I was very open about that. Like, teachers are people too. Your professors are people too. Your votes have consequences, and I'm one of them now. So, without trying to like call out students, they're like, hey, this is what happened. It's funny that we can take this great step in history in our presidential election, yet the state just went backwards and made me a second-class citizen again.
As Florida tends to do in most elections.
Florida, 2 steps forward, 5 steps back. And I'm sure in that classroom, there were some that were sitting there gritting their teeth or grumbling, or, probably that December gave me a bad evaluation, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, It was a fleeting moment in a class, but it also was more than just, I'm here to spew music history at you and then let you go in 50 minutes. But like, I'm a real person, damn it. And that's how it affected me. Now let's talk about Mozart, and off we go. So.
Who was probably a big old queer anyway.
Probably so.
Yeah. I mean, I think most people were back then. And most people are now. No,
they still are now. Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
But so that's funny that you said that. And I'm glad that you said that, because about, your teachers are people too, because I don't believe that. No, I'm just kidding. Teachers are not people. I mean, that's like saying your parents are people.
Yes.
No. Crazy. But yeah, it's a crazy talk. No, but saying, imparting that on students in a not so subtle way, but also a very subtle way. It's a kind of a double-edged moment, to say, you've imparted something on them in the beginning of class that maybe they did take issue with it and they wrote you a bad review that December, but maybe a year later or 5 years later or 10 years later, they're at the polls, or they're having a discussion with their child who has just come out, or they're checking out a book at the library. Something subtle or monumental in their lives is happening, and they think, okay, my adjunct lecturer at UF said this thing to me and it stuck. That those are the moments that we do have to step up. We do have to lean in, and not let pass us by, because that's the moment. It's not always throwing the brick at the police officer who's raiding Stonewall. It's not always the smashing the bottle at Compton's in San Francisco when the cops show up and say transvestites and drag queens and transsexual prostitutes can't be here. And I'm using that term only because that was the term of the day. It's not always a revolution in the violent protest riot sense. Sometimes the revolution is quiet. Sometimes the revolution is subtle. And that moment, although it was, hey, we just elected our first Black president, and that needs to be celebrated. But I need you guys to know that I lost a lot of rights last night, and my marriage was invalidated by this state. And my right to hold hands with the man I love was just outlawed in this state last night. That may have stuck with someone who was so happy or angry about our first Black president that they didn't even know that vote had consequences about your personal life.
Right. At that age, that there's still a lot of, they're just coming out of high school and have been with their parents. And so there's probably still a lot of identity and politics forming for these students in their own minds. And so even if they don't give a whit, anything about their professors, like, well, so you lost some rights last night, bye, you're just whining, whatever. But, chances are likely somewhere during their college experience, they're going to make friends with a peer who's queer peer. Great. nice little poetry there.
Write a song
But
about
those are the relationships that might actually prompt them to think more like, oh, now I'm actually friends with this person. The professor's one thing, but my friend is affected by this too, or my friends, I have multiple. But even for me to just get that little bit in there, like, hey, this has consequences and personal effects.
Right.
It wasn't a moment of trying to like be a hero or revolt, but I sort of had a platform and was like, I needed to get this out. And hopefully it sticks with some of you in whatever way.
Yeah. I think I do think that those moments are sometimes easy to dismiss when, if a student or a coworker or your mailman, if someone says, hey, you seem a little off today, what's up? It's easy for us to say nothing, don't worry about it.
Right.
But why not take that moment to say, yeah, this election, this vote, this bill that passed, this thing has affected me personally, and it may not have you, but let me tell you why.
Right.
Why not make it a teachable moment for the person who asked or noticed, because they may never get someone else ever in their lifetime who will do that. Someone has to tell them why not have it be you in a kind way. Or pointed way, but at least not mean.
Yeah, exactly. Because the story that just came out last night about the NFL player that came out as gay.
Yeah,
fantastic. That's awesome. I think it's still easy for people to remove that though. So like, well, I don't know this. I can't even think of his name, so I don't know.
Nassib,
but that's it. Yeah, thank you. I don't know this person, so that's a nice story, but I don't have any like real personal connection to it. But when you see like the teacher standing in your room or your friends across the table from you at the cafeteria, that brings those things a little bit more connected to why even a straight person, an ally or a non-ally at the time, needs to be paying attention to these things.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought him up, Carl Nassib, because I think it's really important, and it's not lost on me, that because it's the NFL and because it is such a masculine sport, and although I don't know the statistics of how many players are white and how many players are non-white and how many players are 280 pounds and 6'3" or whatever. He's a big guy. I know I literally just heard a story before you and I got on this interview. He's 280 pounds. I think he's 6'1" or something like that, maybe 6'2". He's a big guy. And he's entering his 6th season with the Raiders. He's not some rookie. He's not a brand new player who doesn't know what he's doing. He's not about to retire either. It's an impactful image. It's also impactful that he's white. He's the quote unquote all-American boy. That's important. Because if he were a black kid, if he were an Asian kid, if he were a rookie, if he were past his prime, so much of the fan base of the NFL who are conservative, old white guys, they could dismiss him so easily if he were anything other than what he is. But he's the all-American boy, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, white. He lives on a farm in West Virginia. He's
absolutely,
and he's gorgeous. That all plays to his favor and as a community our favor. He's not Colin Kaepernick. He's not. I can't even remember the 2 players that came out after they retired from the sport a couple of years ago. And that says something that I can't remember. I mean, I'm not a football fan, so it says more about me than it does about the sport. But they were quickly dismissed. One was between seasons and never got picked up. That says something about the sport, where it was 5 years ago, and about the league that they weren't supportive 5 years ago. And one of them had retired already. So, they were, neither of them were white, and I think that played into it. but this guy, Carl Nassib, he's the All-American boy as far as looks go. And he came out kind of subtly on Instagram. And I think had it been a big news day, had it been the day after the Israeli election, had it been the day of the presidential election here, had it been the day of a mass shooting, I don't think anyone would have picked up on it.
Right.
So he picked a good day on his farm. It was a sunny day. I mean, the only thing that would have made it more probably notable is had he been shirtless throwing the football around. But yeah, I mean, he was subtle about it, and he picked a slow news day, and he did it in a professional and subtle way, and I think it was well done. But I think the aesthetics are very important for everybody involved, including the queer community at large. Yeah, because had he been, I can't think of, because I don't know football, not because it's, any other reason, but the Pacific Islander guy with all the hair that goes under the helmet, I don't think people would have cared. Had it been the one of the 100 black players, I think people would have dismissed it. But because he's the All-American boy, people are paying attention. And I hope more see it as the chance to come out and follow in his footsteps. Because sometimes that's what it takes. One person to say, hey, I'm here, I'm queer, get used to it. And other people say, hey, yeah, me too. So I hope it does lead to a windfall of, because statistically there's more.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I mean, you and I know that, but the closed-minded people who are saying, oh, so there's only one, or maybe
whatever.
Count the other two that came out years ago. Yeah, it was like the guy, not Putin, but the other head of state or the other head of government in Russia. Putin said it too, but the guy, I guess he's like the equivalent of their Secretary of State, said there's no gays in Russia.
Oh, right. Okay.
Why does Putin ride around on a horse with no shirt on then? Because the women are not fawning all over him.
No.
Yeah. He's not exactly the ideal Russian body type that women are attracted to.
He's not the ideal anything body type, but
that's true,
right. You're right.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the women that the men that Russian women are married to, he doesn't fit that aesthetic either. But
No.
He's not the big burly Russian bear.
Not at all.
He's a seal pup. Anyway, so yeah.
With no offense to seal pups.
No offense to seal pups, because I'm a fan of seal pups, and he's not an attractive seal pup. Anyway, so yeah, so I'm really glad that your coming out story was easy compared to many, and I'm glad that your work environment is easy. I'm sure that there have been incidents of things in Gainesville that have not been so easy and what's the word I'm looking for? Not difficult, but I know that the pride events in Gainesville have not always been met with open arms. But on campus, they always seem to be well received. Has there not been any sort of pushback of college or faculty backed events there on campus?
No, not really. I mean, you sort of raise a good point about the environment of Gainesville, is that they're and anybody from Gainesville is watching this is going to come after me now for what I'm about to say, but there's sort of a disconnect between Gainesville Pride and campus, and so like our Pride Student Union and things like that. So yeah, there are great events on campus that the Pride Union puts on, drag shows and other sorts of events to get students out. And then there's the City Pride, which all sort of happens on its own, and the two don't really talk to each other. And I don't know why that is, but no, the campus atmosphere is fine. I mean, I think it's sort of the attitude of choice. Like, okay, great, that exists. There are 8 million other student organizations that exist, and we don't have to engage with them if it's not something for us. So people just really leave it alone. I've never heard any major backlash about Pride Student Union doing things. The city itself, I mean, yeah, we've had the protesters, all 5 of them, like line up across the street from our little downtown Pride Festival or something like that. The Westboro wannabes or something like that. We had the infamous church here that was burning the Quran years ago.
Right. Yeah.
So their ilk came out and protested our Pride. But even that, like a community like Gainesville is largely supportive and open about these things. And people that want to come and take part in it do. And the others are like, okay, we just, we won't go downtown today because that's going on. And nobody really goes out of their way to make a big deal about it.
Okay. Yeah, because I know I don't even want to give him the credit of mentioning his name or his
Exactly.
But that guy, the guy burning the Quran and other books, he was not just the Quran, but that was the one that got national attention.
Yeah,
he was burning a lot of books, but he
all but one, pretty much.
Yeah, that's right. All of them except the Bible. But he was getting a lot of national attention. But he I don't think he drove his truck through the Pride parade, like he didn't hit anybody, but he did try to block the road. Or someone from his church did try to block the road that year for the Pride parade. So no violence came of it, but he did try to cause some trouble for at least a couple of years. But that is a hollow incident, thank goodness. But
yes, exactly.
Yeah. So I think he's still in jail, isn't he?
He's just sort of stopped being in the news, and I think left Gainesville for southern pastures like Tampa. This is their problem now.
Let's not say his name 3 times.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Let's just conjure him up. No.
But yeah, so I'm glad to hear that, because I know at UNF here in Jacksonville, they're I believe it's the LGBTQ student union. I think they've updated the name. But the queer student union here struggled to get started, and it's not that old, but they struggled to get started with a lot of backlash. But now it's thriving. It's got kind of its own very nice large space in the student union, and they do a lot of great events. So I'm glad to hear that Gainesville has kind of happened without much incident, although it may not have started that way. So again, kind of back to the topic at hand. So Pride in kind of an everyday personal way for you is kind of a non-issue. You just kind of go with the flow and decide kind of who to.
Yeah. I mean, really, it sometimes is a complicated thing in my head, if depending on the context, like, how much am I going to say or what am I going to say? But I really never feel like I'm on guard, like, don't mention anything, boyfriend or husband, or like no hints, nothing whatsoever. I mean, even if I've got this thing on my hand, it sort of makes it a non-starter. But that's just sort of how I've been for quite a long time now, which was like, I'm just going to go out and be me, and put it out there. And if you choose to accept it, that's awesome. If you can't for whatever reason, okay, I don't know why. If we've got to work together or any number of things, you better make it work. But I'm not going to push it on you. So yeah, it just sort of is a roll through life kind of thing, and take it as it comes.
I think that's great, because I think that has afforded you kind of a I don't want to say easy, because I don't think that's the right word, but I think it's given you I don't want our viewers to have the wrong impression, because I know like anyone, your life has had ups and downs and struggles and other things that are not related to your queerness, but it's afforded you the ability to just kind of, hey, I am who I am what I am, and it has nothing to do with the rest of my life, with the other parts of my life. And that's kind of the best approach for you. It may not be for everyone, but you don't have to you don't have to sweat that part of your life. You don't have to say, okay, I'm going into a Wendy's, do I have to butch it up because of what side of town I'm in? Do I'm going into a Hamburger Mary's. Do I have to be extra effeminate so people don't think I'm straight? Do I have
Right.
to, you don't have to consciously think about it. You just are who you are. And if you, see somebody, and your reaction is to go, oh my God, hey, then you might. And if your reaction is to go, oh yeah, hey, how's it going? You might. And it's just how you react. It's just who you are in the moment. And that's great because it's natural. Where so many of us think, okay, where am I before I react? Who is this person to me before I react? And who am I with? How do I introduce them?
Right.
Where, I've been around you enough with other people to know that you don't stop and go, okay, so this is my friend Mike, and that's his husband Jeff, and I have to introduce them to Sheila from church. Do I say it's Mike and his husband Jeff, or do I just say, hey, it's Mike and Jeff? Or do I even introduce them to Sheila? Or do I let them introduce themselves? Or, do I say Sheila's from church? Or do I say how I know Mike and Jeff? Like, you don't go through that whole process that a lot of us go through. You just say, oh, hey, Sheila, this is Mike and his husband Jeff.
Right.
And you just do it, where a lot of, and internally you may be going, oh shit, how do I,
Yeah, sometimes.
as she's walking up, you've had this whole conversation in your head, but
if you only knew how many conversations I have in my head before they actually happen, if they ever do, that's true. Yeah, that is sort of just how I approach things. Is like I'm not here, definitely not to hide myself. If I was introducing you and Jeff, I would be like, well, I have no problem introducing them as husbands. And I recognize that is maybe a bit of privilege I've had, that I can be so just sort of, I hate to say nonchalant about it, like I'm not thinking about it, or like it's not ever been difficult, but that I can just sort of like, I work in a professional atmosphere that's very accepting. My side career as a musician is obviously, not obviously, I shouldn't say that, but it's most of the time like, great, of course we don't care. My family has been accepting all along. So I've been in spaces mostly of my life that it's not had to be a struggle. But again, I recognize that that's not the case for everybody. And that I'm actually very lucky to be able to live as I do.
I know you've got a wide circle of friends. And I know in this day and age that can mean in person or online or both. But I know that your circle of friends is vast. So I know you've got friends who have had a myriad struggles when it comes to their sexual orientation and identity. What advice do you have for, based on what you've seen your loved ones go through? What advice do you have for anyone who's watching who might say, yeah, but I can't be as laissez-faire or casual about it as Phillip is, having watched what you're saying, I can't be as subtle or as relaxed as Phillip is. What would your advice be to them?
Wow, that's a great question. I think everybody has to look inside and know what's right for them. Evaluate the context of whatever situation they're finding themselves in. Is it parents or siblings or Sheila from church, or how are those relationships? What history can they draw on from those? But really to know what's important inside. And if it's like, I've got to get this out, I've got to say, I'm queer, and whatever other identity labels need to come at that point. That somebody look inside and know when they're comfortable and when they think it's right or necessary. And what's going to happen after that, nobody knows. That's the struggle about being in a constant life of coming out, is that once you put it out there, you can't take it back. And you also don't know how, from that moment, what the reaction is going to be. Is it going to be positive? Is it going to be negative? Indifferent? Okay, fine, whatever. Sure, I don't care. That's the thing. And so every individual person struggling with that has to be able to have the self-awareness to evaluate what might this do? Probably without overthinking it though, because then we could all talk ourselves out of it and nobody would ever come out. But to really know, like, I trust my dad enough to now tell him this. I don't care enough about Sheila at church that if she sees me in a rainbow band, she's going to say anything other than, like, maybe if nobody else knew and all of a sudden she was going to out me to somebody else.
She's a bitch anyway. I mean,
yeah.
I know.
Why did we even bring Sheila up? She's just,
She's almost as bad as Sheila from HR. I mean,
nobody's as bad as Sheila from HR. Let's not go there. Maybe they're the same Sheila. I don't know.
Well, I think it is the same Sheila because she, it's like all the Karens in the world.
All the Karens, exactly.
I have to say, I know so many Karens that are so sweet and loving. I feel bad that Karen has become the moniker of the evil white lady, but I also, Karens and Darrens. That's what I've called them. People started saying Karens and Kyles because it's not it's alliterative. But I think Karen and Darren because it rhymes. I think Darren's better. And there's so few Darrens in the world outside of Bewitched.
They're all in
Darrens. I think Darren is better because it's less likely you're going to offend somebody. But then it feeds to my white male privilege. Like, well, why not offend some white men in the world? We're offending all the what? So fine, Kyle should be offended. But I actually only know 3 Kyles in real life, and they're all really nice guys. It's like, do I want to offend the only 3 Kyles I know? I don't know. Whatever.
It's like you're saying, every Karen in my life is a wonderful person and actually has a great humor about the whole Karen thing. So,
well, I know one Karen who is a complete bitch and she deserves it. So, but yeah. And now all the Karens I know are gonna go, is it me? Am I the one? Yes.
Watch those Facebook messages coming in,
The Karen who's questioning it, you're the one.
If you have to ask, it's you.
Yeah, if you have to ask, it's you. And both Sheilas.
For sure.
Well, Philip, I really appreciate you being on. And as always, you're this. I told you this the other night. You're one of my favorite people. I love you so much, and I always enjoy your company. And I'm just so I have it on record. It's recorded and it's audible, and you can play it anytime. The trip I took with you to IKEA here in Jacksonville was, other than my first trip ever to an IKEA, the IKEA trip with you was my favorite IKEA trip ever. I had so much fun. I don't know how we both fit into that little shower in the little tiny house thing that they built, and how we didn't get caught turning the water on. I don't know.
All the things that happened.
I know. It was crazy, and they didn't catch us, and how we got the towel off the hook and the bathroom broke. Anyway,
I'm talented that way. So.
I'm revealing too much. People are like, they got the water on. How did that happen?
I didn't know this was a late night show. So
you said that was water in your cup. I think it was straight vodka. Anyway,
I'll never tell.
What was that movie? Don't say a word. I'll never tell. Eddie Murphy gone too soon. Anyway, I've completely got us off topic. So I love you. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate you so much. And I'm going to end the show with our theme song again, because I love that song. That's a great song. That little hook at the end, words are not words until you bring them to life. That is just like the best little line there. I think that is so cool. Yeah. So Talk, St. Michael featuring Anya Gold will play us out. Philip, you are life. You are wonderful. I love you so much. I will catch up with you soon. Mwah. Thank you so much. And this is the theme song.